I'm 69 years old. I moved in with my son and daughter-in-law to help with my grandchildren. Every night, precisely at 4 o'clock, my son and daughter-in-law would go down to the basement and lock the door. One day, my curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked through the keyhole. What I saw in the darkness nearly made me pass out. I immediately called a cab to escape with my grandchildren. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments what country you're listening from. I truly appreciate it. Enjoy the story. My day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't need an alarm clock. I'm woken by an internal metronome, calibrated over 4 decades of working as a head nurse at the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. Getting up when it's still dark and quiet outside is a habit ingrained into the very core of my being. Here, in this huge, echoing house belonging to my son, the habit has become a necessity. I head downstairs to the kitchen. It looks like an operating room, all steel and cold white quartz. Not a single unnecessary detail, not one warm, lived-in touch. Zara, my daughter-in-law, is obsessed with sterility. I switch on the coffee machine, a complicated contraption that whirs like a medical device. I don't drink coffee, it's forbidden for me, but its aroma has to fill the house right on time for 8 o'clock, when she and Kambani deign to descend from their second-floor suite. They call it creating a productive atmosphere. They both work from home in their dedicated offices, important people. While their coffee brews, I mix the batter for Jabari and Zola's pancakes. Jabari is 7. He's serious and thoughtful, like a little elder statesman. Zola is 5. She's pure, ringing joy, a ray of sunshine that keeps this house from completely freezing over. I'm here for them. For them, I sold my cozy 2-bedroom condo downtown, the one with windows overlooking the historic square. I gave them every penny, every single dollar, for the down payment on this suburban palace. Mama, this will be so much better, Kambani told me, hugging my shoulders. We'll live as one big family. You'll help us with the kids, and we'll take care of you. And I do help. I cook, I clean, I do the laundry and the ironing. I drive Jabari to his magnet school and Zola to pre-K. I play with them, read them stories, tend to their scraped knees and childhood colds. I am the 24-hour nanny, cook, and housekeeper, a free-of-charge accessory to their glittering life. And they do take care of me. Yes, I have my own room, small, on the first floor near the kitchen, so it's easier to get up in the mornings. Each of my days is identical to the last, as if someone put on an old vinyl record and the needle is stuck in the same groove. Breakfast for the children, breakfast for the adults, cleaning, laundry, lunch, outing, dinner, bedtime story. Round and round it goes. Kambani and Zara emerge from their offices only to eat or issue instructions. Mama, iron my shirts. I have a critical video conference tomorrow. Jindayai Azizi, don't forget to order the water filters and get Zola a new sketch pad. She's filled up this one already. They don't ask, they inform. To them, I am a useful but inanimate piece of furniture. But there is one crack in this sterile, controlled routine. Something that doesn't fit into their perfect schedule. Something that happens every night, precisely at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hear it almost every time. Old folks are light sleepers. First, the squeak of their bedroom door upstairs. Then quiet, almost inaudible footsteps descending the staircase. They move in sync, like two conspirators. They pass my door, walk across the entire first floor, and stop at the heavy oak door leading to the basement. I hear the key turn in the lock, a heavy, dull clunk that sends a chill through my chest every single time. The door closes, and silence falls, only to be broken a few seconds later by a faint, monotonous humming. It sounds like some kind of machine is running down there, an air purifier or something similar. At first, I didn't pay it any mind. Young people have their quirks. Maybe Kambani set up a wine cellar, or Zara had a workshop. She was into complex polymer clay crafts. It's a storage area, Zara once tossed out when I asked what was in the basement. Old stuff, tools, don't worry about it. I didn't. I tried not to, but the nightly ritual repeated with frightening accuracy. Every single day at 4 o'clock, the clunk of the lock, the humming. Precisely at 7 o'clock in the morning, another clunk, and they come back up, always together. Their faces are strange afterward, tired but with a focused, almost clinical expression, as if they hadn't been sleeping but standing watch over a sick patient. This inexplicable night vigil began to trouble me. What could they be doing in the basement for 3 hours every night? Why lock the door with such a heavy-duty lock? The anxiety grew slowly, like poison ivy twining around my heart. I fought off bad thoughts, blaming myself for being an overly suspicious senior, but I couldn't shake that cold, clammy feeling. Then, that night happened. It started with Jabari. Around 3:30 in the morning, he ran into my room, trembling, his eyes wide with terror. "Grandmama, I had a nightmare." I hugged him, pulled him close beside me, and stroked his closely cropped hair. He clung to me, a hot, frightened little bundle. I whispered comforting words, telling him a quiet story about a brave little chipmunk. Slowly his breathing evened out. He sniffled, falling asleep. I lay awake, listening to the measured ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. And then it came. 4 o'clock. The door upstairs creaked, the soft footsteps. I froze, even stopped breathing. They passed my room. Their silhouettes momentarily blocked the sliver of light beneath my door. And then, there it was, the heavy final clunk of the basement door lock. This time, I couldn't take it. Something inside me snapped. A spring that had been holding back my curiosity and fear broke. It was an almost physical sensation, like being shoved from behind. Cautiously, so as not to wake Jabari, I slipped out from under the covers. On tiptoe, holding my breath, I crossed my room and carefully opened the door. The hallway was dark. Only the faint light of the nightlight from the living room cast long, ugly shadows of the furniture onto the floor. I moved toward the basement door. Each step echoed in my head. The floor beneath my feet was icy cold. Reaching the door, I paused. The humming was clearer here, and I caught a smell, faint, but painfully familiar. A scent impossible to mistake. It was the way hospital corridors smell. The smell of disinfection, antiseptic. My heart hammered somewhere in my throat, frantic and desperate. Why did the basement smell like a hospital? What was down there? A shiver ran through my entire body. I knelt down. The keyhole was old-fashioned, a large, clear aperture. Squeezing my eyes shut for a second, I gathered my courage and pressed my eye to the cold metal. At first I saw only darkness. Then my eye adjusted, and I began to make out shapes. The basement wasn't cluttered. On the contrary, it was frighteningly clean. And in the center of the room stood a hospital bed with metal side rails. Next to it, an IV stand, a clear bag of solution with a thin tube trailing down from it. Zara stood with her back to me by the bed. She was adjusting something on the IV drip system. Her movements were precise, measured, like a nurse's. And on the bed, covered up to the chin with a light blanket, lay a person. A figure, covered almost entirely. Suddenly, the person on the bed stirred and slowly turned their head in my direction. The light from the corner nightlight fell upon the face, and my world crashed down. Time stopped. Air froze in my lungs. I saw that face. I knew it. Every mole, the curve of the eyebrows, the line of the lips, all of it was burned into my memory, pale, gaunt, with shadows beneath the closed eyes, but undoubtedly hers. It was the face of my sister, Kima. My sister, whom my own son told me 5 years ago had died suddenly in the hospital from a ruptured aneurysm. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. An icy band squeezed my chest, forcing out the air, sucking out the life. My vision darkened. Kima was alive, here, in this basement. I staggered back from the door as if struck. A ringing noise filled my ears. The cold metal of the keyhole seemed welded to my skin. But I didn't scream. I didn't fall. Something deep in my solar plexus clicked like a switch, and the wave of cold, paralyzing terror was replaced by an absolute ringing void. Panic is a luxury a head nurse can't afford when a life is on the line. And this was exactly that situation. Slowly, on all fours, I backed into the darkness of the hallway. My movements were automatic, honed by years of night shifts when I had to move through a ward without waking a single child. My brain, my old, trained brain, was already working, processing the event not as a personal tragedy, but as input data for a medical triage. Triage, the first rule in any catastrophe. I reached my room and silently closed the door. Jabari was asleep, curled up. His warm breath was the only living, real sound in this frozen world. I sat on the edge of the bed, my back straight as a steel rod. Situation analysis. Patient: Kima Azizi, my sister. Status: declared deceased 5 years ago. Current condition: alive, held in the basement, connected to an IV drip, likely under heavy sedation. Prisoner. Threat: Kambani Azizi, my son. Zara Camille, my daughter-in-law. Status: criminals. Holding a person captive, falsified a death. Motives unknown, but likely financial. Their behavior is unpredictable. They are dangerous. Assets at risk: Jabari Azizi, 7 years old. Zola Azizi, 5 years old. My grandchildren. Status: sharing a house with dangerous criminals. They are the most vulnerable link. Conclusion: it was cold and clear, like a surgeon's scalpel. My sister is a long-term problem. I can't save her right now. My son and daughter-in-law are a threat that must be neutralized from a distance. And the grandchildren? The grandchildren are the immediate priority. Goal number 1, immediate evacuation of the children. I stood up. The trembling was gone. In its place came a cold, crystal clarity. A plan was already forming in my head, sharp and step by step. I had about 2.5 hours until 7 o'clock in the morning. That should be enough. First, I pulled my old handbag from the dresser drawer, not the one I used for shopping, but a small travel bag, the one I used to take on trips 40 years ago. In it, I put our documents, our passports, the children's birth certificates. I always kept them with me, in case we needed to go to the doctor. Thank God Zara never cared about that. I put all the cash I had saved from my modest Social Security check in there too. Not much, but enough for the short term. Next, clothes, nothing extra. Warm, comfortable sweatsuits for Jabari and Zola, pants and a sweater for myself, a couple of changes of underwear. Toothbrushes. I moved quickly, silently, like a ghost in my own house. I took each item from the shelf carefully, ensuring I didn't disturb the overall arrangement, so their morning inspection wouldn't immediately reveal the loss. Now the most important thing. I opened the closet and, from an old mitten tucked deep inside, I retrieved it. A simple flip phone, my emergency backup. I bought it many years ago after a particularly bad flu season, when I was afraid I wouldn't even be able to call an ambulance. I kept a small amount of money loaded onto it and told no one about it. My smartphone, the sleek touchscreen model that Kambani gave me as a gift to connect with the world, I left on the nightstand. Let them think I simply stormed out. Let them look for its signal here in this cage. All that was left was to wake the children. This was the riskiest stage. I approached Zola. She was sleeping in her small cot in the corner of my room. Zara insisted she sleep with me so she wouldn't run to them at night. I leaned over her, taking in the scent of her hair, milk, and sweet rolls. My heart ached with tenderness and pain. "Zola, sunshine, wake up," I whispered right into her ear. She stirred, opening her sleepy eyes. "Grandmama?" "Shh, my sweet girl. We're going to play a game now. Secret spies. We need to get dressed and leave the house so quietly that no one hears us. Understand?" A flash of fear crossed her eyes, but then it was replaced by excitement. A game? Of course it was a game. I dressed her quickly and quietly. Then I woke Jabari the same way. I told him the same thing. He, being the older boy, frowned. "Do Mom and Dad know about the game?" "This is our secret," I whispered back, looking directly into his eyes. "It's a very important mission. Everything depends on it. Can you handle it? You're my main protector." He nodded seriously. My little man. Dressed, we paused at the door. I listened. The faint humming still came from behind the basement door. They were there. They suspected nothing. "Now we walk like mice," I whispered. "Not a sound. Hold on to me." I picked up the bag and took their hands. Their small palms were warm and trusting. And that trust brought on a wave of responsibility so heavy I nearly suffocated. I was their only chance. We slipped into the corridor. Every step on the creaking hardwood floor seemed deafening to me. I led them through the dark living room, past the lifeless silhouettes of the expensive furniture, which now looked like sinister monsters. There was the front door. Slowly, millimeter by millimeter, I turned the key in the lock. The clack seemed louder than a gunshot. We froze. Silence. I cracked the door open. A blast of cold, damp, pre-dawn freshness hit my face. The sky to the east was just beginning to lighten. We stepped onto the porch, and I just as silently closed the door behind us, leaving it unlocked. We walked down the path to the gate. I moved with the children around the corner into the shadow of a tall hedge, and only there did I take out my flip phone. I found the number for a taxi service that I had saved beforehand. My voice was level, calm. I gave them the address of the next street over. Not our house. Never leave tracks where they can look for you. Rule number 2. The car arrived in 10 minutes. 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. I stood, holding my grandchildren, and looked at the second-story windows. At the windows of my son's bedroom, the man who looked me in the eye 5 years ago and told me my sister had died. He cried then. I remember. I wonder what he was crying about. His sister or his ruined soul? The cab gently braked by the curb. I quickly settled the children into the back seat and got in myself. "Where to?" asked the driver, an older, tired-looking man. I gave him the address of a motel in a different town, an hour's drive from here, small, unremarkable, one I had read about in a newspaper once. "A bit far," he grunted. "We have an early train," I lied calmly. "Afraid we'll miss it." He nodded, and the car pulled away. I didn't look back. I looked only ahead at the road speeding beneath the wheels. Jabari and Zola, exhausted by the early start and the excitement, were already dozing on my shoulder. An hour later, we were there. I paid with cash, leaving a generous tip. The sleepy desk clerk gave me the key to a third-floor room. And finally, we were here. I locked the room door with every deadbolt. The room was simple, clean, 2 beds, a table, a window overlooking a quiet street. I undressed the children and put them in one bed. They fell asleep instantly, not even hearing my final whisper. I was alone. I sat on a chair by the window. The adrenaline that had propelled me forward all these hours began to recede. The first part of the plan was complete. The children were safe. But I knew this was just the beginning. The worst, the hardest part was yet to come. I looked at my sleeping grandchildren, and there was no fear or despair in me. Only a cold, ice-like fury and an absolute, unshakable resolve. You underestimated me, children. You thought I was a fragile, sentimental wreck, a compliant servant. But you forgot who I was. For 40 years, I saved children's lives. Now, I will save mine and my sister's. You started this war, and I will finish it. I stood up and approached the window. The sun was rising over the sleepy city, painting the rooftops a soft, rosy color. Down below, the first city bus rolled by, brakes squealing on the turn. A new day had begun. For me, the first day of a new, unknown life. And for them, in that cold house, the finale of their usual world was just beginning to play out. I didn't even need to see it. I knew them both so well that I could picture everything in minute detail. I could almost physically feel the minute hand on the clock in their living room pass 7 o'clock. I hear the dull clunk of the basement door lock. They come upstairs, tired, silent. their faces gray after their 3-hour vigil. They don't look at each other. This ritual has drained all emotion from them, leaving only focused professionalism. They go their separate ways to their bathrooms, 10 minutes for a shower, then they'll head down to the kitchen. And right here, their world, calibrated to the second, will crack for the first time. 8 o'clock. Kambani comes down first, as always. He hates waiting. He's already anticipating the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and a stack of hot pancakes that I always make for the kids, but which he never refuses. He walks into the kitchen and freezes in the doorway. Silence. That's the first thing that hits him. Not the peaceful, ringing silence of the early morning, but a dead, vacuum-sealed emptiness. The air doesn't smell of coffee, and no oil is sizzling on the stove. There's no sound of Zola upstairs in the nursery whining because she doesn't want to get up, or Jabari already messing with his Lego set. The house is silent, as if all the air, all the life, has been sucked out of it. I imagine him frowning. Irritation is his first reaction to any deviation from the norm. Where's Mom? Did she oversleep? Impossible. In all the time I've lived here, I haven't overslept once. At that moment, Zara descends. Unlike Kambani, she doesn't show emotion. She scans the space with a cold, evaluating gaze. The kitchen is empty. Silence. Her lips tighten into a thin, displeased line. Where is she? Kambani's voice sounds confused and petulant, like a child whose toy has been taken away. I have no idea, Zara snaps. There's no confusion in her voice, only cold, steely irritation. An inconvenience, a schedule disruption. They circle the house, first going upstairs, looking into the children's room. Empty. Neatly made beds. This surprises them. Usually the children leave a small hurricane in their wake. They check their own bedroom as if we could be hiding there. Stupid. Then they come downstairs and head toward me. The door to my room is slightly ajar. Kambani pushes it open. The bed is made, perfect order. My smartphone is on the nightstand. I know that phone will become their anchor, a point of reference in their shaky reality. Here it is, her phone. That means she couldn't have gone far, couldn't have called anyone. This calms them, turning the anxiety back into mere irritation. Is she out of her mind? Kambani almost shouts. Where could she have gone this early, and where are the kids? And then I almost hear Zara's calm voice, full of poisonous contempt. The old woman threw a tantrum. Something didn't please her again, decided to teach us a lesson. She goes to the nightstand, picks up my phone, and checks it. Of course, it's locked with a password they don't know, but the fact that it's here in the house tells them a lot. Or rather, it tells them exactly what they want to hear. She got upset, Zara continues, a sneer barely hidden in her voice. I probably asked her to vacuum in too sharp a tone yesterday. Old people get senile. They take offense at everything. She went for a walk with the children to show some backbone. Whatever. She'll be back by lunchtime when she gets hungry. Where would she go? Where would she go? This phrase is the quintessence of their attitude toward me. To them, I am a powerless creature, completely dependent on them. I have no money except my paltry Social Security. I have no home of my own. I have no friends they didn't approve of. I am locked in their world, in their house, and any rebellion from me is nothing more than a senior's caprice that they can simply wait out. They don't see a person in me, they see a function. And that function has failed, causing a vexing but temporary inconvenience. This is their main mistake. They judge me by the role they forced upon me. They forgot who I was. They don't see Jendeyai Azizi, who managed an entire department for 40 years, making decisions that held lives in the balance. They see a mother, a grandmother, an old woman, helpless and sentimental, and this blindness, this arrogant certainty in my dependence, is my ace in the hole. I imagine them discussing what to do next. Kambani, as always, panics. Maybe call the police. What if something happened? Zara's face, I'm sure, turns into an icy mask at that moment. The police in this house. The thought of it is unbearable for her. The thought that strangers in uniform might enter here, start asking questions, inspecting the premises, all the premises. "You're an idiot, Kambani," she hisses. "What would we tell them? That your pensioner mother went for a walk with the grandkids and didn't warn us? They'll laugh us out of the precinct, tell us to wait. And what if they start looking around here? Is that what you want?" The last question is like the crack of a whip. Kambani shrinks. Of course, he doesn't want that. He fears her. He fears exposure more than anything in the world. This house, this beautiful life, purchased at the price of monstrous betrayal, is his only accomplishment, and he will protect it at any cost, even the cost of his own mother. Their fear of the police is the wall that protects me. They've locked themselves in a cage. They cannot raise the alarm. They cannot file a missing person report. Any official investigation will inevitably lead to the basement, to their secret, to Kima, and they know it. So what do they decide? Nothing. They decide to wait. Zara will brew their coffee herself. They'll grab something from the fridge, sit down in their offices, and try to work, constantly glancing at the clock in the window. They will be gnawed by anger. Anger at me for disrupting their comfort, for making them feel uneasy. But not for a second will they entertain the thought that I left forever, that I know something. In their universe, that's impossible. The sun in my motel room rose higher. The children stirred in their sleep. Zola mumbled something, and Jabari hugged her. I looked at them, and the cold fury in me gave way to something else. A calm, focused strength. They gave me time. Their arrogance, their contempt, their certainty in my complete and unconditional surrender gave me the most valuable resource, a head start of a few hours. And for me, for head nurse Azizi, a few hours is an eternity. It is more than enough time to regroup, prepare the tools, and deliver the next blow, precise, measured, and absolutely unexpected. I took my old flip phone. My fingers didn't tremble. I found a number in the address book that I hadn't dialed in years. The number of a person who wasn't just a colleague, but a true friend. A person who now held a very high position. The time for waiting was over. The time for action had begun. I found the number in my address book. It was written in old, faded ink, but I knew it by heart. Dr. Cheikh Diop, once he was just Cheek, a young resident who ran to me for advice. Now he was the administrator of an entire network of clinics. A big shot. But I knew that behind the expensive suit and important title, the same young man I taught how to place a catheter in a newborn was still alive. I was counting on that. The ringing felt like an eternity. The children were asleep. Outside the window, the city, strange and indifferent, was waking up. "Hello?" A deep, tired voice answered. The voice of a man who had been pulled away from something important. "Dr. Diop, hello? It's Jendai Azizi." A pause fell on the other end. I could hear him breathing. "Jendai Azizi, my goodness, it's been years. I'm happy to hear from you. Is everything all right?" His voice was a mix of surprise and polite caution. I understood him. An old colleague calling his personal number at the start of the workday. It usually doesn't mean anything good. "Things are not all right, Cheikh," I said evenly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I need your help and your word that this conversation stays between us." "Of course, Jendai Azizi. I'm listening." He was still speaking to me like an older woman who might need a consultation or a good hospital room, condescendingly and patronizingly. I took a deep breath. How could I tell him this? How could I clothe this madness, this nightmare, in words that wouldn't make him think I was crazy? "Cheek, I don't know where to start. I'm not home right now. I left with my grandchildren, away from my son Kambani." "I see," he drawled. "Family matters, Jendai Azizi. I sympathize, of course, but I'm not exactly the right specialist." "It's not about that," I interrupted him, not letting him finish. I couldn't let this conversation slide into domesticity. "Cheikh, this is about my sister. Kima." Another pause. this one longer, tenser. Kima, but Jindai Azizi, forgive my bluntness, but she died several years ago. I remember Kambani informing you. My condolences, though belated. This was the moment. The ice under my feet cracked. Now or never. I closed my eyes so I wouldn't see the sleeping children, but only the darkness of the basement and the face on the pillow. Jake, my voice was quiet, but hard as steel. That's Kima. She's alive. Kambani is holding her captive in his basement. Silence. It was so thick, so deafening, that I could hear the blood pounding in my temples. I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. He could hang up. He could politely say I needed rest. He could do anything. Where are you right now? His voice had changed. There wasn't a trace of condescension left, only the sharp, professional urgency of a physician in the emergency room. I gave him the motel address. Don't leave there. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't call anyone else. I'll call you back in 30 minutes. And he hung up. 30 minutes. I placed the phone on the table. It seemed like an alien object to me, like a time bomb. I stood up, went to the bed, and adjusted the blanket on Zola. Her cheek was warm, she smelled of sleep. Jabari frowned in his sleep, just like his father, or the man I thought was his father. What is Jake doing right now? He's sitting in his huge office. He opens his computer, accesses the medical archives. What is he looking for? The death certificate for Kima Azizi. 5 years ago. Cause, cerebral aneurysm rupture. Hospital number. I didn't even remember which hospital Kambani had named then. I was in such shock, such grief. He said he handled all the formalities himself so as not to traumatize me. What a caring son. He brought me an urn of ashes. He said it was Kima's will, cremation. Whose ashes did I bury next to our parents then? Whose? I walked back and forth across the small room. The minutes stretched out like thick, sticky molasses. 5 years I had lived with that lie. 5 years I had mourned a living person. I combed through my memories for every loose thread, every oddity I hadn't noticed at the time. The way Kambani avoided talking about her final days, the speed with which he wrapped up all the affairs related to her condo and assets. Mama, you don't need to get involved in this. It's too painful. I'll do everything myself. And I believed him. How I believed him. I was blinded by grief and gratitude for his care. The phone rang so sharply that I jumped. His number flashed on the screen. I picked up. Jindai Azizi, he said, and I didn't recognize his voice. It was hollow, distant, the way people talk when reporting a death. Yes, Cheik. I pulled all the archives, not just our network, all the city databases. Kima Azizi did not die 5 years ago. I silently leaned against the wall. My legs gave out. Her official status is alive, he continued, nailing the words like a hammer blow. 5 years and 3 months ago, she was involved in a traffic accident, a serious traumatic brain injury. She was admitted to the ICU at our 7th hospital in a coma. A coma, not an aneurysm, an accident. My God, she was there for 3 weeks. The doctors gave a positive prognosis. It wasn't a deep coma, but a post-resuscitation state. There was a chance for recovery, but she was taken from there. Taken? How? I whispered. Your son, Kambani. There was steel in Cheik's voice. He appeared on the 3rd day after the accident. He presented a general power of attorney in her name for handling all affairs, allegedly signed 6 months before. He insisted that her treating physician not inform anyone but him about her condition, citing her desire for privacy, and after 3 weeks, he arranged a transfer under his own responsibility to a private facility for home care. I slid down the wall to the floor, a forged power of attorney. He cut me off from her. He locked her away first in the hospital, and then. But why? My whisper was barely audible. Why all this, Cheik? Why such a monstrous lie? He paused for a second, and what he said next was the most terrifying thing of all. Jendayi Azizi, I ran one more check. Her husband, Kwame. He died a year before the accident. He was a lead engineer at a defense contractor. He had a huge life insurance policy and a lifetime pension for service that, in the event of his death, would fully transfer to the widow. Kima, plus all his savings and assets. I don't have access to exact figures, but we are talking about very, very large amounts of money. For all these 5 years, someone has been faithfully receiving her pension and managing her accounts based on that same power of attorney. A buzzing filled my ears. The pieces of the terrifying, ugly mosaic fell into place. Their house, their expensive SUVs, the successful remote work that allowed them to live in luxury. Zara buying designer bags. Kambani talking about stock market investments. All of it was built on her suffering, on her stolen life. They didn't just hide her, they turned my sister into their personal ATM, a living corpse that reliably brought them income. The cold I had felt at the basement door now filled me entirely, without reservation. This was no longer fury, it was something else, calm, like the surface of a frozen lake beneath which lay bottomless depths. I knew what I had to do. The plan in my head instantly became more complex. It became harder, more merciless. "Chake," I said, and my voice was level and strong again. "I'm going to need your help one more time. But first, I have to do something myself." I put down the phone. The silence in the hotel room pressed on my ears. I got up from the floor and went to my bag. At the very bottom, beneath the change of clothes and documents, lay an old tablet in a worn case. Kambani had given it to me about 3 years ago for my birthday. "You can look up recipes, Mama. Talk to the grandkids on video call." I hardly ever used it, but I faithfully kept it charged. Intuition, I suppose. An old person's habit of having everything that might ever be useful in reserve. I connected to the motel's Wi-Fi. My fingers moved slowly but surely. I opened the bank's website. I remembered the login and password by heart. I didn't trust those to any piece of paper. The page opened before me, showing 2 accounts. One was my pension account, with its meager funds, and the second was called Reserve. I remembered the day we opened it, more than 10 years ago. Kima had just married Kwame. We were sitting in my old kitchen, drinking tea with cherry preserves. "Agnisha, let's open a joint account," she said, laughing. "We'll put a little money in there, just in case. Call it our secret fund." We put symbolic amounts in, and I was listed as a full owner. I had almost forgotten about it. Kambani and Zara, apparently, found the documents and decided it was the perfect, ready-made tool. Why open something new, leaving tracks? They could just use this old, forgotten one. They must not have even checked the second owner, or they checked, saw my name, and just laughed. The old lady, what could she do? She doesn't even remember it. What a saving mistake for me. Their arrogance became their Achilles' heel. I opened the account. The amount I saw made me shut my eyes. The numbers danced before them. 6 zeros. It was a fortune. A whole fortune bled from my sister's life. Every dollar in that account was steeped in her pain, her silence, her stolen years. I didn't hesitate for a second. I felt neither thrill nor malice. I felt like a surgeon lancing a festering abscess. This was not theft. It was expropriation, the return of stolen goods. I created a new transfer. In the recipient field, I entered the details of my own pension account. In the amount field, I entered every last cent. The system requested confirmation. I pressed the button. A green box appeared on the screen. Transaction successful. That's it. The first mine was laid. I closed the tablet and put it aside. Now, all that remained was to wait and to imagine. I knew it would happen within seconds. Zara had alerts set up for everything. She controlled every dollar. I could almost see her sitting in her white, hospital room-like office, irritably looking at her laptop screen when her phone, lying next to it, makes a short, demanding sound. She casts a quick, annoyed glance at it. A bank notification, probably interest credited or some other trifle. She picks up the phone, swipes the screen, and her face changes. I picture it in detail. How, at first, confusion appears on her pampered face, then disbelief. How she rereads the short message several times. Debit, reserve account, amount, account balance, $0, zero. The word explodes in her brain. She freezes. Her perfect posture falters. The mask of the Ice Queen cracks, and beneath it, a predatory, ugly fury shows through. "Kambani!" Her scream cuts through the silence of their perfect home. It's not loud. It's piercing, like the shriek of a saw on metal. Kambani, I'm sure, rockets out of his chair in the adjacent office and bursts in, already frightened. He knows that tone. That tone means catastrophe. What? What is it? She doesn't answer. She just silently hands him the phone. He takes it, squints, reads, and I see the blood drain from his face, how his already weak features blur, losing shape. He starts to mumble something. Is this a mistake? The bank? I'll call them now. "Look at the recipient, you idiot," she hisses. He looks at the phone again, frantically scrolling through the transaction details, and finds the recipient. Jendai Azizi. At that moment, the sun goes out in their world. The realization crashes down on them like a concrete slab. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a system glitch. It's her, the old woman, the quiet, compliant, gray mouse living in the room near the kitchen. She didn't just leave. She struck a blow right at the heart of their prosperity. Panic gives way to fury. They start pacing the office. Kambani screams that I'm crazy, that I'm a thief. Zara is silent, but her silence is scarier than any screams. Her brain is working frantically, calculating options. How is this possible? How did she know? And what the hell do we do now? And at the very peak of their agony, when they are stunned, confused, and utterly disoriented, the second blow lands, the one I asked Cheek to deliver. In the silence of their home, the piercing trill of the doorbell rings out. They freeze. They never have visitors. All their communication with the outside world happens over the internet. Couriers leave packages at the gate. The sound of the doorbell in their house is a signal of invasion. They look at each other. The same animal fear is in their eyes. "Who is it? Don't open it," Kambani whispers. "And what?" Zara bites out, her face a white mask. "Are we going to sit and wait until they break the door down?" The bell rings again, insistently, demanding. Zara shoves Kambani in the back. "Go see who it is, and not one unnecessary word." He walks to the door on shaky legs. I know what he looks like now. A pathetic, frightened little boy caught stealing. He looks through the peephole. A man stands on the porch, unremarkable, in a severe dark suit with a folder in his hands. Not a courier, not a salesman. A government official. Kambani slowly opens the door. "Valery Igorovich Gorsky?" The man's voice is calm, colorless, bureaucratic. "Yes, yes." "My name is Agent Miles Washington. I represent the State Department of Regulatory Oversight for Patient Status. We received an anonymous report that citizen Kima Azizi, who requires urgent medical examination, may be at this address. I am authorized to conduct an inspection of her living conditions." Every word from this man is a hammer blow pounding the lid of their coffin. He names her name, Kima. He speaks of an anonymous report. He demands an inspection. I imagine Kambani freezing, clutching the doorknob, and Zara standing motionless in the shadows of the hallway behind him. They are caught. The money is gone. Authority stands at the threshold. In the basement is the living proof of their crime. Checkmate. In 2 moves. I knew they would run. It was the only way out their animal instinct for self-preservation left them. To stay means immediate exposure. It means Agent Washington will enter, go down to the basement, and see everything with his own eyes. He will call the police, the ambulance. An investigation will begin. Therefore, they will run, abandoning everything: the house, the expensive furniture, their offices, and my sister. They will leave her there as an unnecessary, incriminating piece of evidence, hoping that this will somehow mitigate their guilt. I could almost hear their panicked whispers after Kambani slammed the door in the official's face. "We're leaving. Now. Out the back door." Zara's hiss. "Where? What are we going to do?" Kambani's whimper. "Find her. Get the money back. That's all that matters now. She couldn't have gone far." They will slip out of the house like rats from a sinking ship, get into their expensive car. And where will they go? They'll think frantically, desperately. How could she pay for a motel? Cash, perhaps, but she only had a little. What else? A card. My pension card. That was my third mine, planted early this morning. I didn't pay for the room with cash, but with my card. I knew that Zara, obsessed with control, had once tied alerts for my card to her phone. So you can see, Mama, that you don't lack for anything. I deliberately left them that track, that breadcrumb that would lead the wolf right into the trap. I wanted them to come. I wanted to look them in the eye. This conversation had to happen. The children were already awake. I washed their faces, fed them the bagels I bought downstairs at the buffet. They were quiet, sensing that their familiar world had crumbled. Jabari sat on the bed, concentrating on building something out of pillows. Zola was coloring in her sketch pad. I sat beside her and hugged her. "Grandmama, when are we going home?" she asked, not looking up. "Soon, my sunshine. We'll have a new home soon, much better than the old one." And at that moment, a furious pounding started on the room door. Not a knock, but fists hammering, violently, forcefully. Zola jumped and clung to me. Jabari froze with his pillow in his hands. I knew who it was. I slowly stood up, straightened my sweater, and walked to the door. I looked through the peephole, the faces of my son and his wife, distorted by rage. They found me. I turned the key. The door flew open so fast it slammed against the wall. They burst into the room like a natural disaster. Zara was in front. Her face, usually so composed and polished, was twisted into a hideous mask of anger. Her eyes shot daggers. She looked like a fury. Kambani shuffled behind her, pale, limp, with wet eyes and trembling lips. "You old witch!" Zara spat. Her voice broke into a shriek. She took a step toward me, but I didn't back down. I just stood there, staring straight into her eyes. "You ruined everything. You destroyed us. Do you even understand what you've done?" The children behind me started to cry. Jabari ran up and gripped my skirt. "Mom, please, don't," Kambani started, but his voice was drowned out by the torrent of her rage. "Shut up, you weakling!" she snarled at him without turning her head. "This is all you, your family. I told you she'd only cause trouble." She turned back to me. Her chest was heaving. "Where is the money? You took all the money? Give it back right now, do you hear me, you senile old woman? That's not your money." I remained silent. I just looked at her, and my calmness, my silence, enraged her even more. She wasn't used to this. She was used to me lowering my eyes, to me making excuses, to me trying to please her. Now, an unsubmissive servant, a granite wall, stood before her. Finally, Kambani spoke. He collapsed to his knees in front of me, right on the dirty motel carpet. He was crying, smearing tears across his face like a small child. "Mama, Mommy, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. It was all her. She made me do it. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to. She came up with everything. Auntie Kima, the power of attorney, the accounts. She said it would be better, that it was her money by right because she was taking care of her. I had no choice, Mama." He sobbed, clinging to my legs. A pathetic, weak, spineless man. In that second, I felt nothing for him. No hatred, no pity, only emptiness. It was as if a complete stranger was before me. My son died. He died 5 years ago, the day he brought me an urn with a stranger's ashes. I carefully pulled my leg free from his grasp, stepped over him as if he were an obstacle, and stood directly in front of Zara, shielding the children. And then I spoke. My voice rang out in that small room, unexpectedly loud and clear. It was calm, deadly calm. "That is my sister's money, Zara," I said, looking her in the eye. Not yours. She is my sister, and you turned her into a ghost, a living ATM to pay for your worthless life. Her face contorted. What do you understand? We cared for her. We gave her care she never would have dreamed of in a state hospital. She's a vegetable. She doesn't need that money anyway. She needed family, I cut in. She needed me. And you forged documents to cut me off from her so no one would know she was alive. I worked as a nurse for 40 years, Zara. I know what medical records look like. I know medical ethics. I know what a coma is and what a post-resuscitation state is. I know everything you did. And now, it's not just me who knows. I paused. Now the police know too. I delivered the last words slowly, emphatically. I saw the fear flicker in her eyes, real animal fear. She understood that this was the end, that the official at their doorstep wasn't a coincidence, that it was part of a plan, my plan. Her gaze darted around the room, searching for an exit, for salvation. And it didn't stop on me or on the sobbing Kambani. It stopped on the children. Something changed in her eyes. Rage gave way to cold, predatory calculation. It was the last desperate move of a cornered beast. She realized the money was lost. Freedom was lost. The only thing she had left was her final card, her last ace. She lunged, not at me. She darted past me like a snake. Her movement was so fast, so unexpected, that I didn't even have time to react. She pounced on Jabari. Grabbing his arm, she yanked him toward her, pulling him out from behind my back. The boy cried out in pain and surprise. "He's my son!" she screamed, her voice soaring into a deafening, hysterical pitch. She pressed the struggling Jabari against her, using him as a human shield. "You won't take my son from me. Do you hear, old woman? I'm his mother. You have no right." She looked at me over the head of the frightened child, and a triumphant, mad fire burned in her eyes. She thought she had won, that she had found my weak spot, that I would break now, start begging, agree to any terms, just so she would release the child. She decided that maternal instinct was something that could be traded, something that could be used for blackmail. Kambani, still on his knees, watched the scene with stunned horror. Even for him, this was too much. He stammered something. "Zara, don't! Stop it!" But she wasn't listening to him. Jabari was crying, trying to break free. "Mom, let go! You're hurting me! Grandmama!" I looked at her hand, clamped with a steel grip on my grandson's shoulder, at her face contorted with malice, at her eyes full of confidence in her own impunity. And I didn't move. I stood motionless like a statue. There was no fear for Jabari in me. I knew she wouldn't hurt him. Not now. Right now, he was a valuable asset to her. But I saw the strength with which she was holding him. I saw the fear and pain in my boy's eyes, and that was enough. She waited for my reaction, my tears, my pleas, but I stayed silent. I just looked at her. And then, when the pause dragged on, I quietly said 4 words. "Thank you for confirming that." She didn't understand. Confusion was reflected on her face. What was I talking about? And in that very moment, in the deafening silence broken only by the children's crying, a quiet click sounded. It was a soft sound, almost unnoticeable. But to Zara, it sounded like a clap of thunder. The door to the adjoining room, the one that had always been locked and led to the room next door, slowly opened. 2 people stood on the threshold. A woman in a severe gray suit with a tired but attentive face, and a tall man in a hotel security uniform. The woman held a voice recorder in her hand, on which a small red light was glowing. Zara froze. She was stuck in that same pose. One hand gripping her son's shoulder, her eyes wild, hunted with terror. Her gaze darted from me to the people in the doorway and back again, and she understood everything. She understood that this was not a tantrum, it was not a spontaneous outburst. This was all a setup, a performance in which she had just played her final, most disastrous role. The woman in the gray suit took a step into the room. Her voice was calm, but brooks no argument. Zara Camille, I am Ms. Patrice Evans, Inspector for Child Protective Services. My colleague and I have heard and recorded everything that has transpired here in the last 10 minutes, including your threats and the use of physical force against your son, Jabari Azizi. Please release the child immediately. Zara's grip slackened. Her hand dropped limply from Jabari's shoulder. The boy instantly darted to me and hugged me tightly, burying his face in my knees. I stroked his head. It was over. Of course, I asked them to come. This was the final part of my plan. When I called Sheikh this morning, I didn't just ask him about the inspection at their house. I asked him to contact Child Protective Services, explain the situation, and tell them that the mother, in a state of emotional distress and pursued on suspicion of a serious crime, would most likely try to use the children as leverage. I rented 2 adjoining rooms, asked the motel management to open the connecting door, and asked the inspector and the guard simply to wait for the signal. And they waited. Zara stood in the middle of the room, broken, devastated. The mask of motherhood she had worn for so long and so skillfully had crumbled to dust, exposing her true, ugly face. She wasn't screaming anymore. She just stared into the void. Kambani remained on his knees, sobbing and mumbling something to himself. He was pathetic. He was nothing. Inspector Evans approached him. Please stand up. I believe you and your wife have a long conversation ahead of you with representatives from other agencies. The security officer will escort you downstairs. They left, not looking at me or the children. 2 ghosts, 2 shadows from whom their imaginary, stolen life had just been taken. When they had gone, the inspector closed the door behind them. Then she came over to me, crouching down to be at eye level with the children. Jabari Zola, she said softly, my name is Ms. Evans. Everything will be okay now. You'll stay with your grandmother for now. She'll take care of you. She looked at me, and in her tired eyes, I saw not only professional duty, but simple human compassion for the first time. Jendai Azizi, she said, you did everything right. You are a very strong woman. I looked at my grandchildren, who clung to me like 2 frightened chicks. Strong? I don't know. I just did what I had to do. What life had taught me, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I was a nurse, and this was my most important patient, my family. I had just performed the most difficult operation of my life. I nodded to the inspector, unable to utter a single word, simply holding my grandchildren tighter, breathing in the scent of their hair. That scent was the only thing that was real in this collapsed world. I knew that my main task now was to build a new world for them, a real one, starting from a clean slate. Several weeks, maybe months, passed. Time lost its usual linearity. It became thick and filled with events, each more important than the last. The days were filled with meetings with lawyers, doctors, therapists, and Child Protective Services representatives. The nights were short, anxious, full of thoughts. I was living on the edge of exhaustion, but for the first time in many years, I felt like I was truly alive. I was not a servant, not a shadow. I was the center, the axis around which my family's fate revolved. Now, all that is behind me. The turmoil has settled, leaving behind a new reality. We moved. With the money I recovered, I rented a large, bright apartment in a quiet neighborhood near a community park. It has high ceilings and huge windows that let the sun in all day. The air here doesn't smell of sterility and lies. It smells of the lush geraniums I put on all the windowsills and fresh-baked cookies. The walls are covered with Jabari and Zola's clumsy but bright drawings. This is a home. Our home. I was granted temporary custody of the grandchildren. The process was long and agonizing, but the recording made in that motel room became the deciding argument. Kambani and Zara. I try not to follow their fate. I know an investigation is ongoing. They were charged with unlawful imprisonment, large-scale fraud, forgery of documents, and abandonment of a person in danger, a whole bouquet of felonies. They are awaiting trial and undoubtedly prison. I feel neither triumph nor a desire for revenge, only a cold, detached fatigue. They chose their own path. My path now leads in a different direction. The most important thing is Kima. She is with us. The same day everything came to light, she was taken from that basement. Chek made sure she was transferred to the best rehabilitation clinic. When I saw her for the first time in the hospital room, my heart nearly broke. She was thin, pale, with a dim, vacant stare. 5 years, with almost no movement on heavy sedatives, had turned her into a shadow of herself. But she was alive, and she was a fighter. She always was. The doctor said her brain hadn't suffered irreversible damage, that the years of sedation had put her in a state of artificial coma. But there was a chance for recovery. Slow, difficult, but present. I was granted full legal guardianship over her. Now, I was responsible for her life, her health, her future. And this burden of responsibility was the sweetest one I had ever carried. Now she sits in the living room. In a modern, comfortable wheelchair, we exchanged the hospital gown for a soft, peach-colored housecoat. Her hair, once dull and tangled, is now short and neatly trimmed. The first pure silver streaks are breaking through. She still doesn't speak, but she no longer stares into the void. Her eyes, they are clear. There is thought in them. There is recognition. When I walk into the room, her gaze follows me. When Zola approaches her and places her small hand on her arm, Kima's fingers weakly but noticeably squeeze, holding that warm hand. Every day, a physical therapist, a young, energetic black woman, comes to us. Together we do exercises with Kima, working her contracted muscles. It is hellish work, and I see the sweat bead on my sister's forehead, how she clenches her teeth. But she doesn't give up. After every session, she looks exhausted, but something new appears in her eyes. A spark. The stubborn Azizi spark I remember from childhood. Jabari and Zola are adjusting to the new life. The psychologist who works with them said they need time. They went through trauma. They saw things children shouldn't see, but their young minds are resilient. They know they are safe now, that they are loved. Zola constantly hovers near Kima's wheelchair, telling her secrets, showing her pictures in books. She calls her Auntie Kima. To her, she is just a new, quiet, and very loved relative. Jabari is more withdrawn. He almost never speaks about his parents, but one evening, when I was tucking him in, he suddenly asked, "Grandmama, are Mom and Dad coming back?" "Never?" I sat on the edge of his bed. "I don't know, Jabari. Maybe someday, a very long time from now. But our home is here now, and I will always be with you." He looked at me with his serious adult eyes and nodded, and he didn't ask again. Today is a warm autumn day. I am sitting on our small balcony covered in wild ivy. I have a cup of hot Earl Grey tea in my hands. Downstairs in the room, I hear voices. Zola is laughing. Jabari is enthusiastically telling a story. And among those sounds, a new one, quiet, like the rustling of leaves. It's Kima. Yesterday, for the first time in 5 years, she made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. But for us, it was a victory, the greatest victory. I look at the sky. I am no longer a servant in a cold, unfamiliar house. I am not a function, not a free accessory. I am the head of the family. I am the protector. I am the matriarch. I am free. This feeling didn't come immediately. It sprouted in me slowly, along with Kima's first successes, with my grandchildren's first peaceful nights, with the first geranium flower on my window. It is not boisterous joy, not the cheering of a victor. It is quiet, deep, like an autumn lake. Confidence. The certainty that I am where I belong, that everything that happened led me here, to this point. On this sunny day, on this balcony, I sip my tea. It is tart and hot. Life goes on. It will be hard. We have a long road ahead of us, but we will walk it together. My sister, my grandchildren, and I, we are family. And this time, we will build our happiness on a solid foundation, on truth and on love. This concludes the story of Jendai Azizi. Thank you for listening to the end. This is undoubtedly a very difficult and multifaceted narrative about betrayal by the closest people and the incredible strength of spirit that can hide behind the mask of quiet old age. This story leaves many questions behind, doesn't it? A son's betrayal is perhaps the most terrible thing a mother can endure. But Jendaye didn't break. She turned her pain into a cold, calculated plan. What do you think, dear listeners? Did she do the right thing? Was her revenge, her precise and merciless blow against her son and daughter-in-law, justified? Or should she have tried to talk, to find another way out? What would you have done in her place when faced with such a monstrous truth? Perhaps you have some remaining questions, or found something particularly interesting in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I will be very interested to read them. Your opinion is very important to us and helps our channel grow. If this story touched you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new, equally captivating stories. Every like and every comment is the best thank you for our work. We wish you all the best. At the end of this video, a window will appear in the center of the screen. Click on it to watch our other most captivating stories.